Run it, I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. Yeah, I hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, run it. Yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Retro Garage. And today I'm going to be talking about this right here. This is my 2012 Audi Coupe Quattro that I bought back in 2018. And I'm going to walk around and talk about the car. I haven't really done it that much in detail, so I thought it'd be a nice way to kind of introduce this YouTube channel and to do a lot of things here, and also show what I've done and my plans for the car over the next while as well. Before I start this video, if you're looking for press plates, be it Japanese style, German font, vintage, standard Irish, any kind of press plates, check out retrogarage.ie. And also, while fuel prices are high, if you are looking to get 2 cents off per litre of fuel, I can help you get set up with a fuel card without needing a business. All you need to do is drop me a message over on Instagram or fill out the form again on my website. So I bought this car when I was 22, and the reason I bought it was I started getting a lot more into the kind of the idea of having classic cars and old school cars. You know, at the time I was driving my granddad's old Mark IV 1.4 Golf that he had since new. I drove it as my daily for a good number of years, and I started getting more into the idea of like, look, I love classic cars, I love old school cars. I've had a Trabant since I was probably about 13, 14 over in Germany. What can I do in Ireland and that I can tell interesting stories about, you know, in years and years to come? So I was like, okay, I want an old school car. And I was looking around BMW E30s. GTA 5 introduced their version of the Audi S1 E2 in Grand Theft Auto 5 online. I know it sounds really strange, but that got me back thinking about Group B. And as a kid and as a teenager, I always watched Group B videos. I just sit in my room on YouTube watching Group B videos, and I love the Peugeot 205 T16, but more importantly, I love the sound and just the way that the Audi Sport Quattros and Or Quattros moved around the stages. So I was like, okay, I want one of those. A couple of days later, I was watching an episode of Mike Brewer's Wheeler Dealers, and I was like, okay, that Or Quattro that they've on the show is really, really cool. They talked about that they sold it for £8,000. It was a couple of years old, that episode. I went looking, I just could not find anything, any way reasonable for a 22-year-old to get. I went to the next best thing and I said, look, if I'm not going to get an Or Quattro, at least let me have something similar. So I started looking at B2 Coupe Quattros, but a lot of them were, again, they were overpriced, and pretty much all Coupe Quattros are 10 valve naturally aspirated in the B2 shape. So I was like, okay, it's not going to be a B2. They just need too much work. Most of them are in the UK and they just don't have the kind of the power I'm looking for. So I then started looking at Audi S2s and over in the UK, and I found a lovely one, to be honest, for about £8,000. But the VRT itself was about £4,000 or £5,000. So I was like, oh, I can't really justify that right now. So I kept looking, and a 10 valve Coupe Quattro like this, a B3 shape, came up for sale in Northern Ireland. I was over in Germany at the time, and I was like, look, I want the car, I'll put down a deposit for it, you know, I'll bring the trailer, collect it, whatever, but I have to drive my grandparents from Germany to Ireland first. The night before I leave, find out car's gone, it's been sold. So I was heartbroken about that. But there was one that looked very, very similar in Dublin for sale, but it was listed for about £9,000 at the time. It was way too much money. I started a conversation with him. It was actually really difficult to get through to him, and then I had to drive from Rostock to Rotterdam, and then I had to get the ferry from Rotterdam over to Hull. And while I was on the ferry, I was still messaging him while we still had like reception from land, and trying to call him and talk to him about the car. We landed into Hull the following morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning. On the way through England, I was kind of like messaging him wherever we stopped. I was messaging, and I started getting no replies, and I was like, that's it, it's gone. The second option is gone. Get to the ferry in Holyhead, still no word. And as we're kind of getting to see the coast as we land into Dublin, I get a message and he's like, look, do you want to meet me at whenever? Look, I'll meet you straight away. The ferry landed at 6 p.m. and at 6:15 I was there looking at this car, and I was in awe. The sound of it when it rocked up was just absolutely insane. But there were a couple of things that kind of threw me off, like the headliner was sagging and it was a really bad job of a headliner. Also got a repaint, and I wasn't the happiest with the quality of the repaint. And there was a couple of other little bits that I was like, oh, this is just, am I just going too deep into this? But one really good thing was I realized it was a 20 valve, and a 20 valve is about 170 brake rather than 130 brake of the 10 valve. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of a bit onto a winner here. It sounds insane, it sounds amazing, has a stainless steel exhaust. Car is actually in relatively good shape. interior is really good, and the mileage is low. It was at about 107,000 miles when I bought it. But I was humming and hawing because the price he wanted was just a little bit too high for what it was at the time, or at least for my budget. He was saying that there was other people interested, and I was like, okay, look, I'm gonna have to let this go. I was heartbroken, but I was like, I'm gonna have to let it go. So I started looking around at other cars. I looked at like a Porsche 944 S2, but unfortunately that car was on jack stands when I arrived, and the sound of it just didn't do to me what the sound of this did. I started looking around at BMW E30s, 190Es, but I came back to this, and your man kind of came down to a price that I was fairly happy with, and I was like, yeah, that's it, take the car. But then the car lived in Kildare for 2 years because I couldn't insure it because I was under 25. Just before the first lockdown of the pandemic, I was living over in London, and I rang around insurance companies, and sure enough, one of them made a little glitch, but they decided to stand by it and warrant it, and I got insurance on this. So quickly tried to book it into NCT before lockdown hits, and then drove it down. So since I brought it down that time, it has had a couple of changes, such as the wheels. So it has AZA wheels on them. They're 17-inch wheels. Put new tires on them recently. I think I put Hankook Ventises on them. It has an Audi S2 bumper, which if you've been following the TikTok for a while, you'll have seen that I did that leading up to Rally of the Lake. And it also now sits on KW V1 suspension, which might be able to see in there. As I said, it has a stainless steel exhaust, which sounds insane. I also have spacers fitted to, so I actually think the fitment is really nice at the moment. But that brings us to one of the kind of like the bad parts, and that is some of the things from when the car was painted a couple of years ago. So you can see here, there's a couple of chips here out of the paint. It was just not the best paint job done. It was probably just didn't have the right prep. Like you can see here, some of the paint just cracking off and falling off. Orange peel. And like I could go through this and pick out a lot of faults with it. There's certain kind of cracking in the paint on the bonnet as well. And because there was a bit of a dent here when I first bought the car, I got a different wing, and I sprayed this the morning that I had to head to the NCT centre with a rattle can because I just didn't want to rock up to an NCT with a silver wing on a black car. Aside from that, she's actually fairly good. She's fairly straight, not too many kind of dents or dings. And as I say, she's on KW V1s, which at the time, Retrogarage wasn't a KW dealer, so I bought them outright. I'm actually still really, really happy with my purchase. The only change that I'd actually make is that I probably would go with KW V3s instead now, just to have the adjustable dampening. I wish I kind of just paid that extra little bit and did that, but you know, it is what it is. The car is a bit messy at the moment, so please don't mind that. I am about to leave Ireland for a couple of weeks tomorrow, so I'm trying to quickly get everything done and rushed before I leave. But the most important thing is under here, and this is it. It is a 20 valve 7A engine, so 5-cylinder, 2.3 litre, 2,309 ccm to be exact, and you can kind of see the similarities between this and like 5-cylinder turbo. Like it has similar rocker cover. The block is actually really, really similar as well. You have the rad over here, so we just put a new rad in before Donegal Rally, so that's why that's not in tight. But other than that, I'm fairly happy with the car. The sound of this engine is just insane. Also currently on custom top mounts, so you can't see them here, but they're kind of custom polybrush top mounts. There's one big issue a lot of VW and Audis of the era have, is that these top mount caps just drop down. So I have these kind of top caps, but the actual top mounts themselves are a lot more in place. So if you went over a speed bump, it doesn't feel like your front suspension is going to drop down. If you look where the top cap is, and then look at where the last cylinder is, so the end of the block, which is about here, look how far forward that engine is, and look at where the wheel is. And it's mad because when I had my 4-cylinder E92, the whole engine was actually behind the top caps. So it's a really weird kind of sensation to have, or when you see it like this. I know a lot of people say they understeer. I haven't actually had too many issues with understeer. You have quite a lot of weight up front, so I've never actually had the front really slip on me at all in this. I want to make a couple of modifications to the car as well. So as I said, it's currently sitting on KW V1s, and if you yourself are looking for any like suspension products or like wheel spacers or anything like that, we now stock them on retrogarage.ie/suspension. There are a couple of things that I have in the shed to put onto this. So I have a tubular manifold for about 6 months. These cars actually came with a tubular manifold from factory, and it looks wild. It is like a bag of snakes manifold, and apparently it improves the sound quite a bit, whereas this one is a cast manifold. This is actually a really late car. It's probably one of the last ones made. The other thing I want to put into it is a quick steer rack. So I have a rack out of a Audi S2 ADY, which is a green label rack, which is exactly the same rack as what would be in an Audi RS2. So I think that will massively change the feel of the car. I think one of the biggest issues at the moment that I face with the car, especially around the like windy roads that we have here in Kerry, that the rack itself is just not quick enough for some of the tight corners we have. I wish it was just that bit firmer and a bit more kind of, you know, direct as well. Other than that, you know, the biggest thing I want to do is to actually get the car painted up at some stage, so hopefully get that done within the next kind of year or two, depending on how things go. I know it's not terrible, but it's just, you can see certain points where I'm like, I wish it was just a bit better, and that kind of inspired the sticker on the back here. I literally just put on today, and it is work in progress in the Quattro font. And the reason for this is just, if I'm going to something like a show, obviously the car is recognized through TikTok and stuff like that, but I'm not 100% on like the paint and different things, and I've seen people go around the car and pick out like little bits of things that are like wrong, such as, you know, the bracket for this is broken after being up in Donegal at the rally. It kind of got snagged on a bush. And that is the other thing, I do use this car to go to rallies, to go to stages, and I enjoy using this car. So I'm kind of like, okay, if I get it painted, am I going to be too precious about it? Because I don't want to do that. So that's why I want to drive it on for another year or two, and then just get everything underneath right. I've already sandblasted and painted the subframes, put new bushings in, all of that. I just want the car driving perfectly and set up exactly as I want it, and then I'll go and do the paint work. And while I am here, these stickers are now in the store. You can get this style of plate. This is the more classic kind of style of plate with the vintage font, and you can also get this style of plate in the store as well. So this is the kind of German font, more classic style. You can obviously get the normal style as well, so like this style here, which is on my Mark IV GTI. It's just a kind of standard Irish font, but just as a press plate rather than a plastic plate. Here's my mother.
He's the mother, yeah.
So then here we have the interior of the car. As I say, it's a little bit of a mess because I'm trying to organize everything before we head off. So we have these kind of like velour seats. They're actually fairly good condition. I need to clean them again at some stage, and I also need to swap this one around with that one just so that the bolster wear is kind of somewhat even. We have this kind of brown wood trim, and we have the same over here as well. So then we have these gauges for oil temperature, oil pressure, and voltage as well. I kind of wish it was a boost gauge, but unfortunately no turbo. I always really like the dash in these, you know, you feel kind of surrounded by something. We have the black clocks. If you ever see cars with white clocks, usually white is that it is an S2 or an S6 or an S4 or something like that. So white is usually for the likes of the S models. Then you have this 3-spoke, I think it's called Nardo steering wheel. Absolutely fab, I love these. There's a couple of weird things as well, such as the hazard switch is actually this switch but on the other side, so you've no button here in the middle. It actually makes it really easy if you want to say like thank you or something to someone, because you basically have a switch the same way as you would like an indicator. Then it is your favorite part, which is this diff lock button. So if I press this, the rear diff locks solid, and it does that up until 25 kilometers per hour, and then at 25 kilometers per hour it releases itself automatically. The idea is if you ever get stuck in the likes of snow, you are able to kind of just pull yourself out of that situation. I know that there is lads that do modifications to this whereby it removes the 25 kilometer per hour thing, and they use it for the likes of then rallying them or kind of just having fun with them, but I definitely won't be doing that. One of the jobs I actually did over the first lockdown as well was I changed this. Bought this on eBay years ago, never really used it, and what I ended up doing was, this was always kind of like black plastic like this, and what I ended up doing was I ended up putting it in and taking off there was kind of black paint on these kind of outer rings, so I took off the black paint off the rings and I then placed it inside this, and I actually think this really changes the look of this kind of center part and the look of the car, and kind of set the tone for where I want to go with the car as well. Another weird thing is the fact that under the steering wheel you actually have a kind of a cubby, so a space to hold things as well. Storage is actually decent on this car, however the one thing you do not have anywhere is a cup holder. You can get something that goes in this slot here. Instead I like this kind of like armrest slash cassette holder kind of thing. I know that I won't be able to have a cup holder. Could try put it somewhere else, but we'll see. Here is my camera that I use for photography as well. It also has electric windows in the front, it has electric mirrors, and it also has heated mirrors. And while I'm on the topic of stuff that's heated, it also has heated water jets for the windscreen wipers as well. Now to the bad parts, and that is the headliner. As you can see, there is currently no headliner in the car at all. The reason for that is this is an aftermarket sunroof. I have a couple of things I need to do to it. I need to fully seal it up and stuff, and then I need to get a custom headliner made because the original headliner will not fit with this type of sunroof, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a shame and it needs a bit of custom work, but I just want to be able to do it right and do it once and do it right rather than do bod jobs of it. So I'm probably planning on doing that. Also trimming the kind of A, B and C pillars in Alcantara, maybe trimming this in Alcantara because they're starting to go, and I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of striped design. I don't mind it on the seats, it actually makes it on the seats, but I think I'd like to have this in Alcantara itself. You do have back seats in here, including those interesting kind of headrests. You can pull down that middle section there as well and get like an armrest if you don't want a third passenger. It has surprising amount of room, and you can kind of see it from the outside. Now, if you look at this car from the outside, you will realize that that roof just seems to go on a little bit too long, and that's actually to give the backseat passengers a bit more kind of headroom. So it's nice they did that. It kind of took away a little bit from the styling, but so be it. Another thing I absolutely love about this car is some of the little features and details. So the likes of having the heck blender across here. It's one thing I love about a lot of old school Audis, and another old school Audi that I just bought yesterday also has the same thing. It has a similar kind of heck blender, and you also have little details like this. So it has the Quattro font in the rear window demister kind of integrated, and also can we just appreciate the kind of spoiler and this built-in spoiler into the rear tailgate. So the way this works, I don't have the key handy, but the way that this works is you lift up the tailgate here and the whole spoiler comes up with it. So I finally, after a couple of years, managed to do a video on my 20 valve Audi Coupe Quattro. I'm going to do a lot more videos about it soon as well. I'm buzzing. I love this car, and it's one of those cars that I will never let go. I'm going to keep doing things to it. It's getting very close to being perfect for me. There's not too much more I want to do with it. Like, I love the S2 bumper. I might put like one of the competition lips on the front of it. Maybe just figure out in terms of the kind of ride height and stuff like that a little bit more. Obviously paint it and kind of retrim parts of the interior. I'm going to leave the seats as they are, but retrim parts of the interior and just tidy the whole car up. And after that, I think I'm fairly happy. Maybe even put a kind of a resonator or something like that into the exhaust as well. But yeah, that was my 20 valve Coupe Quattro. Thank you so much for watching, and also for supporting Retro Garage as well. It's something that it's been incredible, you know, this process of trying to turn it into my day job as well. So thank you so much for supporting. And if you're looking for the likes of press plates, make sure to check out retrogarage.e. If you're looking for any kind of suspension, coilovers, lowering springs, or wheel spacers, we're an official dealer for KW, SC suspension and AP suspension, and also now for Rotiform wheels. And also, if you're looking for 2 cents off per litre, you can get that through filling out the form on my website, or else dropping me a message over on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, and I will talk to you as always in the next video.
Run it. I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, I can't